You've seen the movie, right? Moses raises his staff, the sea splits into two perfect, towering walls of water, and the Israelites walk across on bone-dry land. Then, as the Egyptian army charges after them, the walls collapse, and a perfectly CGI-rendered wave swallows them whole. It's one of the most epic stories ever told. But what if I told you the reality was far more chaotic, muddy, and terrifying than anything Hollywood has ever dared to show? Modern science has been digging into this mystery, and the answers it's finding are absolutely chilling. Forget the clean cinematic miracle. We're talking about the raw, brutal physics of what might have happened that day more than 3,000 years ago. First, let's tackle a huge misconception. When the Bible talks about the Red Sea, it might not be the Red Sea we see on maps today. The original Hebrew text uses the phrase *Yam-Suf*, which actually translates to Sea of Reeds. The problem: the modern Red Sea has virtually no reeds. This has led scholars to consider other locations, like shallow, marshy lakes north of Egypt, many of which don't even exist anymore due to changes in geography and the construction of the Suez Canal. Why does the location matter so much? Because if the crossing happened in a shallow body of water, it opens the door to a mind-blowing scientific explanation that perfectly matches the biblical account. In 2010, scientists at the U.S. National Center for Atmospheric Research did something incredible. They used advanced computer models to see if a natural phenomenon could part a sea. What they discovered is a process called wind setdown. Here's how it works. Imagine a shallow lake, maybe just a couple of meters deep. Now, imagine a ferocious hurricane-force wind blowing relentlessly across its surface for hours. The Bible, in Exodus 14, specifically says, "The Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind * all that night. The scientists ran the numbers. A sustained wind of over 60 miles per hour, blowing for 12 hours, could literally push the water from one side of a shallow basin to the other. It's like blowing hard across the top of a full cup of coffee. The liquid piles up on the far side, exposing the bottom of the cup. Their models showed this could create a land bridge, a muddy corridor miles long and wide enough for a large group of people to cross. The water wouldn't form perfect clear walls, but rather to sloshing, muddy embankments held back only by the howling wind. Think about the terror of that crossing. You're not walking on dry sand. You're trudging through slippery, unstable mud, surrounded by the deafening roar of the wind. The walls of water beside you are murky, churning, and threatening to collapse the very second that wind dies down. Every step would be taken with the horrifying knowledge that your life depends entirely on the wind not stopping. But the real horror, the part that explains what happened to the Egyptian army, comes when the wind suddenly stops. This is where physics turns truly deadly. When you release that much pent-up energy, the water doesn't just flow back gently. It rebounds with catastrophic force. The computer models show that the moment the wind ceases, two walls of water would come crashing back in, not as a gentle tide, but as a violent surge moving at over 30 miles per hour. Imagine the scene. The Egyptian chariots are halfway across the muddy passage. Suddenly, the wind dies. A deep, thunderous roar echoes from both sides. Before they can even turn around, waves over 6 feet high slam into them from two directions at once. It would be pure, liquid chaos. There's no swimming out of that. The force would be immense, flipping heavy chariots like toys, crushing soldiers in their armor, and dragging man and horse into a churning vortex of mud and water. The Bible describes it with chilling accuracy. The water flowed back and covered the chariots and horsemen. Not one of them survived. Physics shows us this isn't an exaggeration. A sudden wind stop would create a death trap with zero chance of survival. But that's not the only theory. Another, perhaps even more apocalyptic explanation, involves a tsunami. The Red Sea is located in a tectonically active region where the African and Arabian plates are pulling apart. Undersea earthquakes are common there, and they are the primary cause of tsunamis. Here's how that scenario aligns with the story. Before a tsunami hits, it's often preceded by a phenomenon called drawback, where the ocean mysteriously recedes, exposing the seabed for hundreds of meters. For the Israelites, seeing the sea suddenly pull back could have looked like a divine invitation to cross. They hurry across the newly exposed land during the night. But the Egyptians, following them into this bizarre, empty seafloor, wouldn't know what was coming next. The drawback is always followed by the wave itself. And we're not talking about a surfing wave. A tsunami is a wall of water, potentially dozens of feet high, moving at the speed of a car. Exodus says the Egyptians sank to the depths like a stone. That's a perfect description of what happens when you're hit by the unimaginable force of a tsunami surge. So, what's the evidence? Archaeologically, it's tough. Some divers have claimed to find coral-encrusted shapes that look like chariot wheels in the Gulf of Aqaba, but these findings are and we can't expect the Egyptians to have recorded such a catastrophic defeat. Their history was propaganda, celebrating victories, not embarrassing losses. The landscape itself has changed so much over 3,000 years that finding the exact spot is almost impossible. What we do know is this: both the wind setdown and the tsunami theories are scientifically plausible. They are real. observable phenomena that match the details of the biblical account with terrifying precision of the timing. The walls of water, the complete and total destruction of the pursuers, and even the bodies washing up on the shore afterward. So, was it a miracle of physics or the physics of a miracle? Did God intervene by bending the laws of nature, or by masterfully commanding them at the perfect moment? Science can show us what is possible, but it can't always explain the why or the when. One thing is for certain, the reality of that day was not a clean, majestic parting of the sea. It was a terrifying, chaotic, and muddy ordeal set against the roar of the wind and water. It was a desperate fight for survival where the line between natural disaster and divine intervention was impossibly blurred, and it's the raw, terrifying power of that event that helps explain why this story has been told for thousands of years. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy exploring the science behind ancient mysteries, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't want to miss our next video. See you next time.